Our next speaker is Julia Lowe. Julia has a background in marine science and education, and during her time at Scripps, she really pushed outside of her comfort zone by doing things like going to Sacramento for an Ocean Lobby Day, going to a participatory science conference in Portland, Oregon, and becoming a science diver here at Scripps. Julia is excited not only about marine science, but about social science, and so she is here today to talk to her project, which blends those two things very elegantly. Welcome, Julia.
About 5 years ago, I came across a quote in a research paper that stuck with me. I printed it out, taped it to my wall, and it's moved with me to every home since. You have to know about it to care about it. It's simple, but it captures something powerful. For example, growing up, I didn't know about so many cool creatures in our oceans until someone taught me about them. This idea is central to what I believe in, that learning can inspire connection, and connection can inspire care. My passion for marine conservation started with education. I really enjoyed teaching others about strange, weird little creatures that exist on our planet with us, and I always wondered about the best methods for facilitating learning about the natural world in a way that could inspire connection. One method for facilitating connection and spreading love for weird, cool creatures is participatory science, a combination of two things I really care about, community engagement and science. Participatory science programs are centered around the idea that you don't need formal scientific training to contribute to our knowledge of the natural world. It's a partnership between non-scientists and scientists. Community members help gather data. You may have also heard the term citizen or community science, but some language is shifting towards participatory science, so that's the word I'm going to be using today. To better understand the role participatory science plays in connecting people with science, I looked into Phyto, a polar program that's an example of participatory science in the extreme. Phyto is a program conceptualized in 2016 by Dr. Maria Vernay and Dr. Allison Cusack that engages travelers with these tiny creatures called phytoplankton. Phytoplankton are microscopic organisms that go largely unnoticed if you don't know about them, but they are incredibly important. Besides being beautiful, they photosynthesize, providing us with 50% of the Earth's oxygen, while also being the foundation of the food chain for marine ecosystems. Travelers learn about phytoplankton and their importance all the way on our southernmost continent, Antarctica. Phyto operates on 15 cruise ships traveling to and from the Antarctic Peninsula, the easiest place for travelers to access. While traveling to Antarctica, visitors live aboard their cruise ship. For Phyto, travelers leave on excursions using small boats led by guides to collect phytoplankton. Travelers collect the phytoplankton, and each group member has a task to help out with. Then, once back aboard the ship, samples are examined under a microscope. Ultimately, they'll be sent back to Scripps and a university in Argentina to monitor how melting glaciers affect phytoplankton communities. After participating, guests are asked to voluntarily take a survey about their experience. To further explore the role these programs can play in the Antarctic tourism space, I decided to analyze the responses to these surveys and learn more about how people felt after participating. Phyto collected 257 surveys from participants between 2021 and 2025, and these surveys were designed by MAS-NBC alum Brooke Dixon. Surveys are 2 pages containing a bunch of different questions over a bunch of different topics, but I focused on analyzing 4 specific questions from the surveys. The first 2 questions were multiple choice, looking at participants' awareness of program opportunities and if there's an influence on future trips they choose. The second 2 were open-ended, evaluating phytoplankton understanding, and then asking if there's anything else participants would like to share. I'm going to take some time diving into each of these 4 questions. First, question 1 asked, prior to booking this trip, were you aware that participatory science projects would be available for you to participate in? I found it really unexpected that 2/3 of participants did not know these programs would be available. Interestingly, one of the expeditions that was sampled was specifically advertised as a science trip to do participatory science, so these answers may report higher awareness than usual. But it was really interesting to see these compared to question 2. Participants were asked, will the availability of participatory science projects influence your decision to book one trip over another? In this case, 2/3 of respondents said the availability of programs would influence their decision to book trips in the future, which I thought was really interesting to reflect upon the fact that 2/3 didn't even know that these education programs were offered. Some people even expanded upon the last two questions in their other answers. I didn't even know there was an opportunity to get involved in science on this cruise when I booked it, but it made the trip even more incredible to me. I've learned more and feel more connected to the research and the mission. I'll definitely be looking up how I can get more involved in citizen science in the future. In order to dig further, I analyzed two open-ended questions like this one. When you analyze an open-ended question, you can get a huge range of responses. Truthfully, I expected most responses to be vague and some to be very honest about their experience, but this was unexpectedly a really fun portion of my project. Some were extremely detailed, some made me laugh, some were so genuine they made me emotional, and some had such wild handwriting that I had to call my grandma to help me decipher them. And it was really interesting to sort through and find patterns within different responses to questions 3 and 4. For question 3, participants were asked to briefly describe what phytoplankton means to them after participating. To do so, responses were analyzed using qualitative analysis software Atlas TI to generate a word cloud. All words shown were mentioned at least 7 times across all surveys. Larger words represent those that were mentioned more frequently. An important thing to note, this survey didn't include a pre-trip measure, so it's hard to evaluate any knowledge gain post-trip. So we can't quantify learning gains in a traditional sense, but we can look at perceived or reported knowledge gain based on the language used in the responses. I highlighted terms that have to do with plankton's role in the food web here in yellow. The most frequently used words were food, chain, and ecosystem. Other words that were used very frequently were life and important. I also included oxygen and carbon because these were mentioned in context to their importance. Lastly, there were frequent mentions referencing participants' own understanding or learning change throughout the program here in blue. I'm really curious to know if guides often use the concept of the food web to help travelers understand phytoplankton's significance. I wonder if having a deeper understanding of the Antarctic ecosystem through learning about phytoplankton contributed to travelers' connection to Antarctica. So for the last question, the survey asked, what else would you like to tell us about your experience participating on this trip? I analyzed this question thematically, meaning I created categories for types of responses. If a participant said they had fun or they learned a lot, those would be 2 different themes. These categories were then associated with major trends in responses. The first was appreciation for guides. This included responses that mentioned guides' names, abilities, traits, or their influence on the experience. The second trend I looked at was added meaning. This included responses mentioning language meaning meaningful or powerful, or a greater value was gained through participating. This first trend, appreciation for guides, included survey responses like, it opened up a learning experience on the trip which I did not expect. Our guide was a fountain of information. It made me want to read and learn more about Antarctica to have a better understanding of this continent. Another said they not only made the trip more meaningful, but it was fun to have a focus. Our citizen science coordinator was incredible. She was always calm, patient, and very prepared. I loved every minute. Guides were described as passionate, knowledgeable, and central to overall engagement with the landscape and with science, suggesting that the guides serve as facilitators of learning as well as emotional connection. Crucially, this demonstrates that they bridge a gap between science and everyday understanding. We can learn more about this impact through the second trend, added meaning. One respondent wrote, I just felt like I was able to contribute to science. It made my trip much more meaningful. Another said, participating in the project made us feel that we're contributing to something worthwhile. It added depth to our Antarctic experience and made us more aware of how this region impacts the rest of the world. Responses using the word meaningful or insinuating meaningful were sorted into this trend. Throughout the answers suggesting a meaningful experience, I felt like there was a theme of participants gaining meaning through their ability to contribute to research. and then a reflection on a deepened sense of purpose and connection to place. Based on this idea, I developed a few recommendations. I think hands-on education via participatory science could have the ability to facilitate connections between travelers and the place they visit, either through learning or feeling like they're contributing to place in some way. There doesn't just seem to be a connection between travelers and the place they visit, but also an interpersonal connection appears to enhance the perceived value of the overall experience. Guides do more than just deliver information. They set a tone for engagement, translate scientific topics into accessible narratives, and create an environment where travelers feel like they're capable of performing scientific tasks and speaking about science. Based on the overall findings, cruise operators should improve promotion of onboard science programs and participation opportunities to increase traveler engagement while supporting science. Further research could explore the connections between people and place formed through education and identify more specifically the powerful role guides have in facilitating this connection. Ultimately, if we want people to care about Antarctica and why it matters to people back home, they have to learn about it. And through programs like Fjord Phyto, they're doing just that, learning not just through lectures, but together through experience. And it seems like people feel more hopeful when they're able to contribute. I'm glad to say I was able to share my project with the wider participatory science community at the end of May in Portland, Oregon, and I was able to communicate my findings and gather feedback from the community. I really enjoyed understanding my own research through other people's voices during this process, so I wanted to close out with a response I really liked. While seeing the beauty of Antarctica was absolutely amazing, feeling a sense of involvement made me feel so connected. It's easy to feel powerless against climate change sometimes, but this experience helps to give hope. Thank you so much for the opportunity to flex my science muscles again. And I would like to thank my wonderful Capstone Advisory Committee for giving me the opportunity to flex my science muscles. I could not have done this project without their guidance and advice. And a giant thank you to my friends and family and my wonderful cohort for making this year so amazing. I would love to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Excellent presentation, Julia. Just hearing about the conference that you went to, the Participatory Science Conference, it's really exciting to hear how these programs can be involved in tourism efforts. So I'm wondering if you heard of any more participatory science programs, maybe not just in Antarctica, but around the world that people can research more into and learn more about before going to those places.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't think I realized how many there were until I went to this conference. I knew there was quite a lot, but there's so many people trying to do really cool work combining community engagement and science. One really cool group that I'll highlight in a little bit is NASA Citizen Science, and they have a ton of different projects you can get involved in. And another really cool tool that you can use to find projects is SciStarter, where you can look up the area that you live in or the area you're looking for projects in, and it's like a big database, so you can find projects near you, which is really cool. Thank you.
All right, we're going to come back for more questions in a little while. Great presentation, Julia. Big round of applause.